NASCAR was on the outskirts of the Windy City for Sunday's Monster Energy Cup Series race at Chicagoland Speedway. Well, the nickname lived up to it as after 11 laps of green flag action resulted in lightning near the area to halt the race, followed by wind speeds as high as 60 to 90 miles per hour. And then the rain came. It took 3 hours to get the cars back on track. For Alex Bowman, the wait was worth it as he had to hold off Kyle Larson in the final 33 laps. But with 8 to go, Larson took the lead, and it seemed all hope was lost for Bowman. But the showman charged back with 5 laps left and went on to victory lane for his first win at NASCAR's Top Series. Happy Independence Day, and welcome to your weekly edition of Ross Racing, brought to you by Rockingham Dragway. I'm Matt Harrelson in the driver's seat with Russell Parker riding shotgun. Buckle up, folks. We've got a lot to talk about tonight, starting with Mr. Alex Bowman finally getting that first win.
Yes, it was definitely a very emotional win for him. Unfortunately, he parked the car in the grass, which was wet, so he got his car stuck. He said himself that he's going to be known as the guy who done that. So, but who cares that he won the race? So, after 134 starts, he finally got his first Cup win. This is his best finish, obviously, since second place this season. He's got that 3 times
So this is his first win ever?
In the Cup Series.
In the Cup Series.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
He's been around in NASCAR in the Cup Series before.
Right.
He's worked his way up really from underfunded teams to getting up into the 88 car. When Dale Earnhardt Jr. had his concussion, he had to sit out for a while. Alex Bowman was the guy that they called, and he ran very well in that 88 car during that time. And then he just kind of fell into it, continued on. He took the ride over when Earnhardt retired. And Bowman, he's just been, this is his breakout season, I feel like. Solid finish there at the end. What he talked about it was that, he was trying to hold off Larson, but his nerves kind of got to him. So Larson took the lead. And then Bowman pretty much just said to himself that he's tired of finishing second.
Yeah.
So he went out there and not finished second, got his first victory ever, and got himself a spot in the playoffs now.
Yes, he did. Well, Bowman is just the 7th driver to win this season, and this is Hendrick Motorsports' second win of 2019. Of course, the other being Chase Elliott back at Talladega, where Hendrick and Chevy dominated. At Chicagoland, Chevy made up half of the top 10, with all 4 Hendrick drivers finishing 11th or better. So we talk about how Penske and Joe Gibbs are dominating all season, but Hendrick would start throwing down during the summer. That statement seems to be holding up now, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then if you look at the overall season, so we're 17 races in, and Hendrick only has 2 wins versus Gibbs 10 and Penske 5. But really, if you look at the past few races, you can definitely see that Hendrick is stepping up and they're making good moves. Jimmy Johnson had a very, very strong start to this race at Chicagoland. He led some laps. Unfortunately, that rain came. I'm sure that messed up his day. But yeah, Chevrolet, Austin Dillon had the pole. Chevrolet has kind of kicked butt this weekend, and top it off with a win is great. I think maybe the only other driver who really had a shot at it that was non-Chevrolet would be Kevin Harvick. He started off pretty strong as well, but I mean, he had the top 2 guys, Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman. Those guys are Chevrolet drivers, competing really hard for the win. So I honestly feel like that, and of course, Toyota had a pretty rough day as well because they had a tremendous amount of mess ups with Denny Hamlin having his pit road penalty. Kyle Busch had some weird smoke issues in his car. But yeah, I mean, Hendrick is definitely stepping up as his summer came along. We just had summer solstice come in, so I think now the statements we've been talking about with Hendrick getting heated up, I think it's all true.
Well, we've also talked a lot about manufacturer loyalty, so I'm assuming that all those Chevy fans really happy over the weekend.
They're all wearing their bow ties this week.
Yes, they are. Well, the original time of that race was at 3:30 p.m., but NASCAR moved it up to 3 o'clock. You're just talking about Jimmy Johnson. He took the lead early in those 11 laps before that ferocious storm blew over Joliet, Illinois, red flagging the race. So lightning, wind, rain caused devastation to the track, knocking over pit boxes, blowing off car covers. And while fans took shelter under the grandstands, drivers, of course, had to find something to do while they waited out the storm, whether it was sleeping, playing Mario Kart, that's my pick, or interacting with the fans in the infield. But all of the crew chiefs had one thing on their mind: how would their cars run after the storm? Russell, what's the difference between 3 o'clock with hot conditions and 6:30 for a racetrack after it just rained?
Well, the rain certainly has a big impact in the way the racetrack handles, especially after you just had all your qualifying and all your practice done with rubber on the track, especially from the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series out there. But all of a sudden, it all washes away. None of that rubber's left up on there no more. It's just you and the track now.
It's not as sticky, quote unquote,
Yeah,
right?
and so you're not able to really find your grooves anymore because now all that's gone. It definitely affects it. And when it gets cooler temperatures, Julian, for example, his car was set up for a hot, sunny day. And then when it cooled down, his car just wasn't going. He finished third, so I'm not sure what the problem was. But overall, I mean, when you think about it, your car is set up for a certain way. And when you're expecting different conditions, or when you're expecting these conditions, you get something completely different. It's just like going from a Sunday to a Monday, or a Saturday night to a Sunday afternoon. Everything just kind of changes the way the track handles and the way your car is going to drive on it. And with the wet grass being out there, if your car slides through that, you're going to tear up a lot of stuff on that. Clint Boyer was one of those victims over the weekend with that. Tore up a lot of his car there. He managed to keep it going so he didn't get stuck. But, that stuff gets eat up inside your radiator and any other parts in the car. Can really leave a bad day for your driver.
So when the crew chiefs are, putting a game plan together with their staffs and all that, is there really? I mean, does what the track's gonna, whether it rained, whether it's sunny, snow perhaps? I don't know if that's ever happened, but I mean that completely changes what they're going to do as far as putting the car together?
Yes, definitely. And it has snowed before. In fact, Martinsville last year, it had some snow come up on that. So, yeah, snow's been an issue as well. But,
yeah.
It really depends. I mean, every crew chief has a game plan for many different conditions. But, of course, with this 2019 rules package, you kind of throw all that out the window because it's all new. You got to figure out what's going to work now, and really it just comes down to whoever's the smartest that can figure it out. I mean, it's a little bit of luck. So, everything kind of handles that.
I guess I just didn't realize you could be that specific about it when it comes to fine tuning your car. But
I mean, crew chiefs get so specific that they're looking at how much weight's in the car,
right?
And sometimes I've heard this expression before that they even check like how thin the decals are on the car. I think that might be in the old days, but not anymore.
All right. Well, so before we move on, though, I've got one more question here. The driver's weight. Do they have to, are drivers put on a specific weight plan for that reason?
I think as long as you're good enough to fit through the window, I guess you're good. Maybe that's how they keep
but if you're measuring
about.
decals, I mean, you're talking about, I don't know if that's true, but you're talking about some minuscule numbers there.
Yeah, I mean, it just, crew chiefs are really, really this...
over eccentric.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like. Of course, I guess you need to be because of that rules package. And by now, everybody knows that NASCAR has been running that new rules package this season, and it seems that it works the best in nighttime conditions. So do you think that more tracks, in particular the mile-and-a-half tracks, should do night races?
I think Chicagoland had one of its best races in a long time, and it was because it was set more in the evening time. 3 hours is a big difference there, and getting yes, actually it would have technically been a 5:30 start for them local time. So from 5:30 to like 8 o'clock, that's a pretty evening-ish time there, and the cooler temperatures seem to work better for the engines because they're not as they can be really hard on each other, but not so much to where they're getting away from the rest of the pack. So everybody kind of balances out with the cooler temperature. So I think Mile and a Half particularly, we've seen great races already with Kansas, Charlotte, those type of tracks where it's nighttime versus what we saw at Las Vegas and Atlanta where they were in the daytime. I think you're just getting better racing at night, and I think you would like to see more Mile and a Halves. But at the same time, it takes away from the daytime races on Sunday. I mean, I guess it depends on what time of the year it is. Summertime, probably the best time to do it is at nighttime. So when you get into like November, when it's getting closer to the championship race, you probably want a daytime race for that. So, I think you just play around with the weather conditions in that terms.
As a fan, do you have a personal preference, day or night?
I love night racing. The problem is, if I go to it, I've got a very late drive back, and I know we were very fortunate that they moved the Bank of America Roval 400 to a day race rather than being a night race from when you and I went, because that was a pretty long drive coming back because of how late it was already getting. So
has it already been a year since we went to that?
It's getting there. It's October We got a few more months, but we went out there for the on-track action maybe about a year ago now.
That's what I'm thinking of. Time really flies, doesn't it? Daytona 500 champion Denny Hamlin was not a happy camper when his team was penalized early in Stage 2 of the race for an uncontrolled tire. So Hamlin took to Twitter to express his opinion of the call, stating it to be a, quote, nickel and dime judgment call, and that, quote, this intent is not why the rules were put in place. Now, Hamlin added that he wanted to see the sport, quote, go back to common sense, end quote. Well, NASCAR's Chief Racing Development Officer Steve O'Donnell responded to the comments on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio's The Morning Drive that you can't judge intent. Well, Hamlin replied back that if it's a safety issue, then Hamlin suggested NASCAR should go back to allowing 6 pit crew members over the wall instead of 5. So, Russell, first off, do you agree with the call made by NASCAR on the uncontrolled tire penalty?
Absolutely. This tire was on the outside of their pit.
I was going to say, what does that mean? What's an uncontrolled tire?
Essentially, if the tire is more of an arm's length away from a crew member, or if it's outside of the pit box, then it's uncontrolled. You have no man there to grab it. And now this tire was being rolled towards the wall, and they're allowed to do this to the crew member who's on the other side where the pit box is. However, the guy who grabbed it was actually not supposed to be handling any equipment whatsoever, and the tire rolled out of the pit box in front of Denny Hamlin's car. So it was very clear. This is kind of like as simple as stepping out of bounds in football. Mm-hmm. It's just a clear, very easy to call. And, I mean, NASCAR has been criticized for with inconsistent rules. NASCAR's not doing that anymore this year. They're not being inconsistent. They are saying, look, if you did this wrong, we're going to fine you for it. We're going to penalize you for it. So Hamlin understandably frustrated, but this is the rule, and you just got to go with it.
All right. Well, speaking of Hamlin, he suggested bringing back the 6 crew member allowance. Do you think they should do that?
I feel like maybe they should. However, the reason why they took it away was because underfunded teams couldn't really afford to have an extra crew member, or if they could, they have to take away from somewhere else. So the reason why they took that extra member away from all teams was to help save some money for the underfunded teams, kind of give them more of an equal chance against the better funded teams. But yeah, I mean, if there is a safety issue, I mean, everyone else is having not really having the issues like Hamlin was having, and Hamlin's crew is usually pretty spot on. It's probably one of the best crews in NASCAR. I mean, everybody has their slip-up days, and I think that's all this kind of was. I think Hamlin maybe just needs to kind of cool off a little bit, focus on Daytona ahead, and worry about everything else. I mean, he's two race winner. He's won 2 races already this season, so I think that maybe he's just a little bit frustrated, and I think he'll get over it and move on.
Yeah, he probably just took his frustrations out on Twitter.
Yeah,
we see that all the time. All right, well, let's head in the groove and go ahead and tell us who you got this week.
So this week, I'm going to start with the Truck Series. Got Brennan Jones, and who started 19th, finished 2nd. That's a pretty big step up for the top 10 there. Xfinity, got Rockingham Motorsports' Michael Annett, who started 18th, finished 3rd. And then for the Cup Series, I got 7 times Jimmy Johnson, who started 4th, finished 4th, got him another top 5 finish this season. We talked about earlier how the Chevrolet's been great this weekend, and just the way Jimmy Johnson came out there and kind of went at it. This is actually one of the tracks he's never won at before, and I'm sure he would have loved to have done that, which would have been really interesting because Chad Canals, his former crew chief, is from Chicago. Probably would have been a little bit upset if his driver won that race without him. So.
I know I've asked you this. I don't know about this season. I know I asked you definitely last season. We were wondering whether Jimmy would come back or go into retirement. It sounds like he's having a bit of a resurgence this season. Is retirement on the horizon possibly, or do you think he'll put it on the back burner again? During
the rain delay, when he was talking to NBC Sports on camera, he was kind of saying that, no, this isn't over with. We're not going away. And I think that's him speaking also about himself, that he's not going away. And I really admire about him that he is going to continue on, because he is at a point where he can say he's done everything in the sport.
Yeah.
7-time, he's tied it up with 2 other big name drivers out there. He's definitely going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he's done everything the sport can really offer him, and I admire that he wants to continue to race because he just loves it that much. So I kind of hope he stays around, but understandably, if he retires, it's well deserved.
Absolutely. Well, going from one of the veterans to one of the young guns, speaking of the Xfinity Series, Christopher Bell was the first driver across the finish line of their race, which is, of course, something we've been accustomed to seeing almost every week. His win was taken away, however, after failing post-race inspection for ride height. I swear they just keep coming up with new terms.
Well, that's what happened to Ross Chastain.
Yeah, but despite that, Bell has signed an extension contract with Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, we're not sure where he'll go within the JGR camp, but we do know that Eric Jones in the Cup Series yet to sign a contract.
Yeah, this has been a big speculation.
Yeah.
And you look at all the other drivers in that Cup Series right now for Gibbs, and you got Denny Hamlin, who has probably solidified himself this season already with his Daytona 500 race win and his other victory this season. And I'm sure FedEx, his sponsor, is probably wanting to stick around with him as well. It's been such a long partnership. You got Martin Truex Jr., who they just signed over, a already proven champion.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, he's not going. Of course, Kyle Busch isn't going anywhere.
Right.
Eric Jones is kind of the only driver who's just sitting on the outside and hasn't really done a whole lot. He won this Daytona race last year, though, so kind of has his eyes on. We all have his eyes on him for this one. This could be his make or break race, actually. So who knows? But yeah, he has yet to sign a contract. He says he's close to it with talks, but I mean, Christopher Bell coming back. Now, it could be as simple as him going back to the 20 car in the Xfinity Series again and racing another season there. But he's definitely extended his contract. And if I was Eric Jones, I'd be trying to find a win this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. As we move on from Chicagoland, we look forward to returning to Daytona for the Coke Zero 400 for the traditional July 4th weekend race. But that tradition is coming to an end after Saturday night because in 2020, the Daytona night race is going to move to the regular season finale, while the Brickyard of Indianapolis Motor Speedway is going to become the hot spot for Independence Day celebrations. So, Russell, what do you think prompted NASCAR to want this sort of change, and do you agree with it?
I feel like that NASCAR looked at Indianapolis and they thought, what can we do to make it a more appealing attraction? Lately, Indy's racing for NASCAR has not been as good as expected, and I feel like out of all the tracks, everybody talks about seat attendance is dropping in NASCAR. I think Indy might be the biggest one.
It's a huge track, though, right?
It is a huge track. I mean, for the Indy 500, they sat 300,000 people there.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult to get that amount of people for a NASCAR race where it's not that historic. I mean, this racetrack has only been on NASCAR schedule for, I think, less than I've been alive, actually. So I feel like that, you know, if NASCAR wants to get more people in the stands, they're going to need to bring some stuff to the track that's going to make it more appealing to go besides just the racing. And a 4th of July fireworks show at Indy is probably a pretty big selling point.
Sure.
And Daytona is Daytona. They know that they can sell that place out. They do it for the 500. This track here for the 400, I mean, it's just as good. And I think with it being the season finale, it's not going to hurt them at all. It's going to make it even more interesting to watch that race as well. So I think it's a win-win for both tracks, and I think it's going to be a win for NASCAR. I know there's a lot of fans out there who like tradition, but things do got to get changed up. And maybe if things turn out better for Indy for next year, they can continue on to have more success. But maybe this could be also a make or break for Indy as it has been for maybe a track like Pocono, who's trying to hold on to both their dates for NASCAR in 2021.
All right. Well, always remember, Rockingham has a spot open if you guys need to find one. Speaking of Rockingham, let's head on over to the Rock Block, of course brought to you by the Rockingham Dragway and rockinghamdragway.com. And I say the same thing every week, but it still stands true. Always something going on every weekend out at the Dragway. This weekend, no different. They're continuing from last weekend's MXA Motorsports Street Drags. Going to have the test and tune starting on Saturday. Gates will open at 4 p.m. Time runs start at 5 p.m. and you can run till 11 o'clock. Admission is just $12, and if you want to run all day long, unlimited time runs, $25. Can't beat that. I do want to say, I know last week I read some of the rules. In case you're watching here, you want to head out there and give it a shot. Tech cards must be filled out completely with the correct car number. All drivers must have proper wristbands. Of course, those are applied when your tech card is bought. Helmets are regulated by the sanctioning organizations, and they call for helmets if a vehicle runs quicker than 13.99 on the quarter mile. Of course, if you have any questions with that, check with the Dragway. If you're taking a motorcycle out there, because those are allowed as well. Motorcycle riders must wear full leathers if running faster than 120 miles per hour in the quarter. Helmets, gloves, leather shoes above the ankle required for all bikes. And I went on Twitter. I saw where the Dragway said last weekend they had over 80 race cars, street racers, and motorcycles. So expect another big weekend out at the Dragway, just like every other weekend.
I don't know if I could do over 120 miles per hour on a motorcycle. I mean,
I'd kill
maybe
myself.
in a car for sure, but
Yeah,
a motorcycle where you got nothing around you, man. Those guys definitely. They got some big.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Cojones. Matter of fact, I mean, all it takes is just a little whoop, and you're gone.
It's
and,
really intense.
It has to be intense. Although I'm sure it is a huge adrenaline boost.
Oh yeah.
Has to be. But before we end the show, I know the Truck Series is off this week, but give us some predictions for Xfinity and Monster Energy Cup.
For the Xfinity Series race, I've got. I think I'm gonna go with Michael Annett on this one because he's raced here very well in the past. And coming off that top 10 last week, I think he's going to carry that momentum moving forward. So Chevrolet and Victor Lane for the Xfinity Series race. For the Daytona race, I'm going with another Chevrolet, and that is in the name of William Byron, the 24 driver. I think that it's time for getting another Hendrick driver in Victory Lane. He raced very well here at Daytona earlier this season. Of course, Chevrolet worked so well with each other at Talladega this past race, and I think they can continue that here. I think all Australia's going to get back together and put on a clinic against these Fords and Toyotas. But, I feel like William Byron's going to be a front driver there at the end. All
right, just like I say every other week, you heard it here first. Put your bets in Vegas or Atlantic City. Russell's going to win you a lot of money. So if not, you can find us right here.
I'm not sure how well I've been doing my picks. I think I had Ross Chastain for Iowa, and
they
took his win away, so I guess it doesn't count.
That sounds like something that would happen if I had picked Ross Chastain, or somebody gets sick or wrecks on the final lap. So, but that is going to do it for this Ross Racing, just like the rest, brought to you by Rockingham Dragway and RockinghamDragway.com. That is Russell Parker. I am Matt Harrelson. Hope everybody out there watching and listening has a wonderful Independence Day. Happy 4th of July to America, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Ross Racing.